Hello. I work for the internet. I love working around the internet. But I also love technology of all guises, so I thought it'd be good to start off with a picture of me using a slightly older piece of technology. First sort of, non-monetary reward for anyone who can guess the camera. Close? No, actually not that close. No, it's an M2, a 1954 Leica M2 that I managed to steal off my music teacher.
We don't have that sort of money.
Yeah. It's called technology, it's a great field to be in. Let me go back to the beginning, or roughly the beginning. This is a picture of my home city, a little bit before I was born. Anyone guess where it was? Yes, God, that's too easy. I was going to give you a slightly easier picture, up-to-date one. These are classic sort of drinking spots in Edinburgh. You'll see them, they're sort of here, here, there, here, all the rest of it. So it's great to both have lived and been brought up near Edinburgh and also gone to university there. I also had the great fortune to go to university at the University of Pennsylvania for part of the time. This is one of the libraries that I used to use quite a lot. It's all been beautifully done up. There's a lot of money at these Ivy League schools to do places up. Sadly, my roommates were into the Grateful Dead, and so up till about 3 in the morning, just used to have this sort of dull bass thumping, and never been able to get to sleep. So I was stoked to find this picture, because I did quite a lot of my sleeping in one of those 2 chairs, actually in the library. So that was great fun, and I love being in Edinburgh and in Philadelphia. I studied chemical engineering. Here's a picture of the 5-ethylene plant just across the water from Edinburgh, where they crack out some of the heavier hydrocarbons into ethylene, which is an important feedstock for the chemical industry. And you think, well, that's great, you've been trained to be an engineer, obviously you want to go into that field, but I didn't. I went down south to London, which is what a lot of Scottish people do looking for jobs, still today, although they probably go further afield. And I had a great time in London, based there, working both around the UK and around Europe. First job there was for PwC. Now that's not PwC on the accountancy side, this is on the IT consulting side. So my first exposure, if you like, to the professional world was a little office out in Docklands, and they put us for 2 months and taught us to code, to C code and project management and testing, and that was all quite a lot of fun, good time. I then had the extortionately bad timing to join the .com boom, little search engine called Ask Jeeves that people probably don't remember. This is in around 2000. Oh, Ask Jeeves, wonderful. Hey, Jeeves users. That's half of them in the room. So Jeeves was lovely, but it was marketing, right? It was a brand, and there was no technology underneath it. So after about 11 months trying to sell this stuff into businesses as an internal search engine, we all got made redundant and wound it up. But it was a wonderful lesson in due diligence, I swear. The way that you think search works today, it's obvious that it should be algorithmic and computer driven. In these days, there were literally floors in Emeryville, which is across the San Francisco Bay Bridge. There were scores of people, humans, searching the web and trying to match them to keywords that you might. Yeah? I mean, how non-scalable is that? Of course, I went there thinking this is great. And I was very proud of my 0.0137% of the company, thinking that would make me rich. And it didn't. So after getting fired, sort of made redundant, I went to work for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton then, at the time. It's now called Booz & Co. And spent probably of my 14 months there, I spent 10 of it on a project in Rüsselsheim, just outside the glorious city of Frankfurt, but Rüsselsheim is not glorious, if you've ever been there. A lot of ham and cheese rolls, and a lot of people trying to get excited about Adam Opel cars. 2 things that just, after 10 months, sort of sap your will to live.
Even the cars are terrible.
Adam Opel, nobody wants to buy them. Your fundamental problem was bad cars. But it was interesting, and the people on the project were lovely, and Mainz, where the hotel was lovely. And the problem was that, and the other few months I spent either working on little projects in UK, or I spent 2 or 3 weeks training in Flimslachs in Switzerland, which was lovely as well. The problem was I never saw my wife. We'd got married, and we were thinking it's only so long I can keep getting up at 4:30 to get the flight out to Frankfurt and try and be excited about what I was doing during the week. And so we decided to make a change. We said it's time to change, it's time to leave the depressing, dirty, overcrowded filth of a city that is London and come to somewhere a little bit nicer. And we did so. We came over here to New Zealand in 2002, so 11 years ago. halfway around the world, it's a long way. Yeah. A couple of suitcases each, we turned up, we sold our flat in Edinburgh. We were living in London, but had a flat in Edinburgh, it was complicated. And no jobs turned up, so Marion got a job doing some teaching 2 days after we arrived, and a few weeks later I managed to snag a little role at the Treasury, looking at doing something completely different than I'd done in Europe. You know, this whole public sector thing was new, and one of the reasons we chose Wellington was it reminded us a little bit of Edinburgh, the topology and the closeness and the walkability, but also because it doesn't have the size of economy to have the sort of companies that I've been working for in Europe. And the Treasury was good fun. It was at the Treasury that I first met the ADDGHI Scott in terms of the work with the Crown Research Institutes. And then after a few years there, I headed over to, I went backwards. Nice. I went over to work at DPMC in the policy group, not the secret squirrel side of the organisation, as probably one of the youngest advisors ever, giving Francis, your brother, a few sort of eyebrows raised, and he put up with my attitude very well. I think his bow tie helped. And I'll talk to one of the highlights of my work there I'll cover next. And then after that, not too long there actually, I went to set up and run something called REANS, which people think is either the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand or the Recording Institute. So no, it's not. It's something called the Research and Education Advanced Network of New Zealand Limited, which is the world's least snappy title, if anything. The irony is that when this was being set up, it was a Crown company. The cabinet paper came across my desk at DPMC, and if I'd known then that I was going to be running it as the first chief executive, then I would have definitely, shot for a name change in that cabinet process. But too late, alas. Now, in terms of one of my highlights at DPMC, does anyone know this share price profile for a major New Zealand company? Starts 2003, I think.
Fletcher.
No, good guesses. Think internet, think technology. Telecom. Telecom. Now, middle of 2006, when I was at DPMC, I spent about 6 months working on something that resulted in this.
Separation.
That's right, that was the, no, there's no extra margin priced into our shares just because we're vertically integrated monopoly. Now the market thought otherwise. $2 billion were priced into telecom shares that the market thought was there because it was a monopoly. That drop was the day that my copy of the cabinet paper got stolen and leaked to a bicycle messenger, and I was interviewed under oath by the State Service lawyers, in which they took great excitement about pulling out my copy of the paper with my initials at the top and going, "Do you recognise this paper?" That's mine. And they slightly deflated. But it was a scary time, but it was a good time, and it had a good outcome, I think, for New Zealanders that's still cracking on with the deployment of fibre across the country. And so after burning telecom, I thought it would be good to progress and do something more constructive with telecommunications, and this is what I achieved at REANS. This is a network called Karen, the Kiwi Advanced Research and Education Network. So Karen's a slightly more engaging name than REANS. It's a very high-speed private network for all the research and education institutes across the country. It allows them to collaborate, not worry about costs, share very expensive pieces of research equipment, astronomy telescopes, supercomputing facilities, large storage capacities, say large genomic sequences, and all the rest of it. And they can shove all that data around the country and off to their colleagues internationally, very, very quickly indeed, without worrying about the bill. Their vice chancellors and chief executives have to worry about the bill, because most of the 5.5 years I was running this was really a money game, because it only had about a third of the money that it needed when it started. So anyway, that was all good. And it's a fantastic opportunity to do something really positive for the country, and in my view, I think deploy one of the biggest national infrastructure projects that was done in the noughties. However, all changed. It came to middle of 2011. I was getting sort of at a point of inflection at REANS. My wife had finally managed to get back to doing some teaching, which is what she loved to do, and so we agreed that it was time to do a little swapsy, and I was going to step back, look after the kids full time. Well, mostly I'd be the primary caregiver, I think the technical phrase is, and she was going to go and make sure she got fully registered teaching, which she did. So my day consists of getting up, getting everyone's lunchbox ready, getting the kids' breakfast ready, and then taking them up to school. Wife's day was going and teaching and earning the little bit of money that you get from being a teacher. And then during the day, I do things like IT consultancy, project management, some high-level strategy stuff, business plans, and some... No, I also managed to get out the old bike as well and get a little bit fitter. Every couple of weeks I pop into the 9 to noon studio to do the new technology slot with Catherine Ryan, which my last one is on Thursday. I also hadn't played a stringed instrument, so I wanted to make sure the kids learned some stuff. So we played the mandolin, so my son and I have been learning the mandolin. I played the oboe a lot when I was younger, so we did a recorder as well with Emily, which has been a lot of fun actually, sort of a year to have the time to actually play an instrument and learn an instrument. Highly recommend the not working full-time deal if you can talk with the office. Absolutely tremendous. Got involved with the local scout group. We've almost doubled the numbers there over the last 14 months, and Denise Church, who's a member of this club, is an absolute stalwart centre figure as well of the Brooklyn Scout Group. Been going since 1909. And managed to spend a lot more time with the important things in life. Not to say that Rotarians and you as fellows are not also important, but it's been great, a really good balance. Very much encourage anyone to step down. However, as Mr. President, you've sort of flagged, all's going to change again here, and while it's been a lot of fun spending 20 months looking after the kids and doing little bits of consultancy during school hours, it's not the most fiscally rewarding long-term strategy. I still managed to bring in substantially more than my wife does as a teacher, which we don't talk about. But we need to do something else, and so it's going to be all changed back again. And I'm about to take up a new full-time job starting in a week and a half. Now, before I say this, I'll give you another sort of interactive moment, some pictures of the office, and you've got to try and guess where it is I'm going to work. Any closer? No, someone said it.
0.
It is, it's Google.
Interesting.
So, 1st of March I become a Googler, which means I won't be able to talk about anything to do with the internet from now on, because it'll be probably conflicting with something that Google's doing. Now initially that's going to be based in Wellington, but I'm what's called parked in Wellington, sort of an inelegant phrase. I never felt more like a sort of resource or a commodity than when somebody parks you somewhere. So I'll be parked until the visa stuff gets worked out, travelling quite a lot, and then we're going to be relocating to Silicon Valley, to Mountain View, where the global headquarters is, and I'll be based out of there for the foreseeable future. And that does force me to ask a question, and that question is, well, how does one go about leaving Rotary? And the answer is with not a little bit of sadness and chagrin about having only been here for a short number of months. It's been lovely having discussions with everybody, and so a great number of thanks are due, both to all of you for accepting me in, despite the sham of me wearing a tie before I was a member, and then quickly dispensing of the tie the minute I became a member. One good thing you have to look up to is actually the average tie quotient in the room will go up from next month, so I leave you with that sort of benefit. But thank you all for Rotary values, and they're very much aligned with where I'm trying to get myself to over time. And there's one thing I will keep with me is that those core values that sit at the centre of Rotary's service and what it tries to do around the world and in countries all over the world are extremely important. So thank you for those as well, and really for me it's goodbye.